Here to explain why the Texas grid has failed so catastrophically, David Roberts, who runs the Volts newsletter about clean energy and politics, and Texas State Representative Rafael Anchía, who serves as on the legislature's Energy Resources Committee. Representative, let me start with you, since you serve on this committee. When people ask the question, what is happening here, what is the answer?
A lot of things are happening. The human toll is the one I'd like to highlight the most. I mean, we've got, at the height of this crisis, 4 million Texans without electricity in a state of about 30 million. Still tonight, even after all the interventions, about 2.5 million Texans are without power. People are chopping up furniture for firewood. People are turning on their cars in their garages to try to heat their homes. Carbon monoxide poisoning admissions to hospitals are on the rise. We've had reported deaths throughout the state from people just freezing in their homes. So things are really bad on the ground. What happened? We had a catastrophic failure of the entire architecture of our energy production and grid system. We're the 9th largest economy in the world. Our economy is bigger than Russia's. And we pride ourselves on being independent and energy independent. And just recently we had a natural gas glut. Regrettably, we're unable to power our power plants with that natural gas because it's frozen in the ground, or pipes are frozen. We haven't been able to get it to the generation. And then when we do, on occasion, some of that generation has been failing. So while I saw your clip earlier and I saw that the governor was trying to blame this on, I don't know, some crazy Green New Deal or windmills, the reality is that we are powered, and very proud of it, by natural gas in this state. We don't shy away from fossil fuel in this state. But regrettably, it has let us down during this crisis. Massive thermal output has been sidelined because of the cold. And we've had mechanical failures, operational failures, and failures to get gas out of the ground. It's been a big problem.
David, you've been writing this great series over the Volts newsletter, which I recommend to people, about the grid, which is a fascinating topic, arcane but important, as we see in this situation. I saw someone today say, basically, if you were to say one thing about happened here, is that this weather event was more extreme than what they decided to insure against, which is to say they just didn't spend the money to protect against something like this, and now that's where we are. Would you agree with that, David?
Yeah, that's not far off. Texas had cold snaps like this in 1998 and again in 2011, and they were smaller, less extreme than this. And there were outages then, smaller and less extreme, but still problematic. And in both cases, the sort of after-action report recommended you need to up-armor your generators against the cold. I mean, there are power generators that operate in cold areas. They can do it. There are windmills in the Arctic. You know, there are natural gas plants in frozen countries. It's possible, but it's expensive. And so the political will to do it fades very quickly after a disaster. And then the public's attention turns to prices, and it just becomes politically unpopular to do something expensive. And so they kick the can down the road again. They've done it a couple of times now.
Well, follow up to this. I mean, there's a broader sort of structural issue here being revealed as I read your series on the grid, which is that it's not just the Texas grid that needs to be up-armored. Like, two things happening, which is we move to fossil fuels, more things remain on the grid, and more extreme weather events means we need major investments in the grid across the country.
That's right. The grid is becoming more and more central to the U.S. economy, to U.S. power, especially in the next 20 years as we electrify transportation, all our cars and trucks, and we electrify all our buildings, building heating and cooling. That's going to really raise the amount of electricity we use, and it's going to make it much more central to our lifestyle. And so the grid desperately needs investment and upgrade. And at the very least, we need a national grid, because at the very least, if generators are offline in Texas, they're likely to be working somewhere else in some neighboring state. So at the very least, we need to be able to share power across the country. That's just very basic.
Representative Greg Abbott tonight announcing he was going to start some investigation of ERCOT, clearly wanting to sort of point people in their direction as the source of the problems here. What's your response to that? And is there going to be the political motivation after this to fix it this time?
Well, what bugs me is that rather than taking responsibility for the Public Utility Commission that oversees ERCOT, which he appoints the members to, he's just trying to boogeymen where he can. Yeah, this is a time we need leadership in the state. We need the governor to act like he does when we have a hurricane blowing through, when he stands up there with the head of the Department of Public Safety and the state guard and says, hey, you know, I'm going to lead and we're going to give you direction on what to do. He has been woefully slow and late on this thing. So now he says he wants to investigate the grid operator. Well, in fact, he has had all of the tools in place through the Public Utility Commission, which again, he controls and appoints to do so during these last decades. Again, your other guest said it right. In 2011, we had a really bad blackout situation. We were supposed to invest, and the recommendations from both the state and federal investigations were you need to weatherize, you need to insulate, you need to de-ice. We didn't do any of that. We didn't spend any of that money and didn't look at it as an emergency. Now people are suffering, they're dying at massive levels throughout the state, and he's pointing fingers rather than leading or accepting responsibility, which is what we need leaders to do.
David Roberts and Representative Rafael Anchía, thank you both for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. Ahead, a closer look at the failures